Hello and welcome to Think and Thrive. Today we have a very special guest and a Year 12 moderator. But before I introduce them, let me start by saying thank you to our guest, Mr. Zubin Chiba, who is a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Robyn, who is our Year 12 moderator. In addition to that, I want to thank Ms. Addis's Year 13 business class for the questions that they sent to Mr. Chiba, and also to Yasira in Year 12 for her questions. That's what really this is about. It's about informing students about career pathways. So Mr. Chiba is a partner in the corporate finance department at PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the leading multinational firms in the sector of financial services and accounting services in the world. They help to advise clients on deal structures, and they are extremely active not only in the Middle East, but all over the world. And we can't wait to hear what kind of advice he has to offer our students here today. So please welcome to the stage Mr. Zubin Chiba, partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Robyn, Year 12 student. Thank you very much.
At the Think and Thrive event, we hope that your comments can inspire some of our young and older business students and possibly their decisions in their career paths. So to start, you're a partner at PwC. Which personal characteristics or skills set you apart from your peers and enabled you to be successful?
Great. Firstly, Robyn, thanks very much for having me here today. It's a real pleasure to meet with you and be part of this event. In terms of the skills that set me apart, I think going through school, going through university, having a real diligent approach to what you do and believing in quality around what the work that you produce and having a lot of ownership and accountability for the work and for what you produce. I think that is really what set me at a good footing when I joined PwC as a graduate, and that's something as an ethos I've carried through my career all the way to become a partner. I think having passion for what you do and really doing something that you love to do also goes a long way. It makes you want to get up every day and go do your job, and it doesn't just become a piece of work or a job. It's something that you just love to do. So I think that passion element is a big thing.
Yeah, and so you speak about having a passionate element, but when you were joining, what was your biggest struggle in this career and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. So look, when you first start in a job, it's a huge learning curve, right? Every day, every hour, you're basically exposed to something new. Some elements of it you'll learn from university, where you'll be able to translate some skills, but a lot of it is learn on the job. And because of that, you go into realizing that there's a lot to absorb, a lot to learn, and you don't know it all. And I think that is a struggle when you first start your career. How you overcome it, I think, is to surround yourself by people that can support you, having friends and developing friends and buddies and peers. Because if you're facing that same challenge, if you're facing the challenge, others will also be having a similar challenge. And I think that's one of the benefits of joining a bigger firm. You have support networks around you, you get to meet a lot of people which become your friends, and you have people above you that know that you're new at the job and are supporting you in that process. So I think the key for me is to ask questions and not to be afraid in terms of asking questions, because when you first come into a new job, a new role, people know that there is a learning curve. They've been through it themselves. So I think it's important to reach out and not be afraid to put up your hand and ask those questions.
Yeah, so when you're speaking of PwC, you kind of portray it as a caring working environment where you can ask questions. So is that why you chose PwC over other firms?
It's a great question. I think for me it was a combination of two things. The firm offered what I wanted to do. So I had a few other options with other big consulting firms, but the nature of work that PwC was offering that I would do was something I was really interested in the world of deals, mergers and acquisitions. The other part that was really important, and it's linked to the point around care that you just referred to, it's about the people that you interact with. So during the recruitment process, when I was meeting with different people from PwC, I felt that I could relate to them the most. I built the most rapport with them, and I felt most comfortable. So I think having that personal connection is really important. Ultimately, you work with people, and that's what we do. We're not selling products. We're working with people to achieve results. So you have to be comfortable with the people that you're working with. So that was important for me in choosing who to work with.
Okay. So this is a question from one of our Year 12 students, Yasira. She wants to know, what does a day look like for a partner at PwC?
Great. So I'm a family man. I have 3 kids, aged 10, 5, and 1. So the day usually starts in a pretty hectic manner. Usually at around 6 o'clock onwards. There's a lot of chaos in the house in the first 2 hours or so. But it's a lot of fun. The day normally starts with myself dropping my kids to school. That's one of the best parts of my day because I get to talk to them and hear what's going on with their school day. Beyond that, once I get to work at around 8:30, it's a mix of, and the work day is a mix of working with clients and solving client requests, needs, etc. And that could be in meetings, a lot of virtual calls these days. It could be producing reports for clients. And then there's a lot of time spent with team. And that could be formal meetings to have a project meeting with the team to say how things are going, or simply just to catch up, an informal, water cooler, by the water cooler kind of a conversation to say how things are going. And then there's also an element of things for the firm to make sure that the direction of the firm and thinking about strategy and some of the administrative tasks that we also have to do. So it's a mix of what I would say client, people, and firm related matters during the day. I try and also get home to have dinner with my kids. I try and leave around 6 o'clock, get home to have dinner, and then spend the evening with my family.
Okay. So you mentioned a lot of virtual meetings. Is this a challenge when trying to bring in new clients?
It's another great question. It is. I think this has been highlighted over the last year in particular with the environment around the COVID environment we now live in. I think what we've found it's easy to work with new clients when we have an existing relationship. Maybe other parts, maybe I personally don't know them, but other people do. And they introduce us to a client. It's then easy to work virtually. When it's a brand new client that you don't know, I think it's particularly difficult. I think there's no substitute for the physical interaction, particularly between a client and a consultant. But I think in general, what I have found is that the way I know our organization and many others have really adapted really strongly to the new way of working through virtual meetings has been really impressive. We continue to have a lot of physical meetings happening, but a lot of virtual meetings also too.
Mm-hmm. And is the Middle East a large market for your services?
It is. I mean, PwC has become the largest professional services firm in the region. It is a really active market, and I'd say predominantly in the Gulf countries, between Saudi Arabia, between UAE, these are the 2 biggest markets for us. And the reasons for that are the governments in these countries and the countries themselves are really going through a big transformation. They've set ambitious visions for them to be able to achieve and really transform their economies and diversify away from oil-based economies into non-oil-based. And that journey started a long time ago, but I think it's really accelerated and we're seeing a lot of opportunities come as a result of that. So we try and help solve some of the region's most important problems through the advice that we provide. And so it is a big opportunity for working in the Middle East, an exciting place. And I always say that, particularly when we recruit people, I think it's one of the most exciting and dynamic places to work.
Yeah. Who are your biggest firms that you've provided advice and solutions for?
Sure. So we have the benefit of working with a whole range of really interesting clients. We work with governments. We work with sovereign funds that in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia. We work with financial investors. We work with corporates. Some of those names, a company like Do is a telco company that I've worked with before. Worked with STC as well in Saudi Arabia. And then the other segment of groups that we work with is family businesses. And I personally find that very interesting because you tend to deal with the individuals rather than institutions. And it tends to be very personal for people wanting to do families make up a big proposition of the regional market. And they listen a lot more to your advice and get a lot more output from the advice we provide. So it is a whole range, and it's exciting having that dynamic range of customers or clients to work with.
Okay, this is another question from Yasira in year 12. How do you differentiate your services you offer from your main rivals?
Sure. So I think in each project that we do, we have to differentiate ourselves in slightly different ways. Sometimes it can be around the track record that we have working on a particular sector. So we may have done a lot of work, for example, in the healthcare sector. So we would show all our healthcare credentials and say, well, why we are better. Sometimes it would be about finding the right team member that could be a real expert in a particular sector and having that expert support on the project. The other aspect that's great working at an international firm like PwC, we have 300,000 people globally, so it's a huge business. And the way we differentiate is that if there are certain opportunities which require skills or inputs from people from different countries, we bring them into our project. So particularly we differentiate ourselves about local competitors that maybe don't have access to that global network of people. The other thing that we look to do is to work with multiple teams. So while you might be in a particular team, I work in the deals business, a client might have an issue which requires input from our tax team or from our audit team or the legal team. So we bring in a range of other teams to support that client issue, and they just have to deal with one firm rather than going to other firms. So this is usually the way we do it.
Oh, okay. And I spoke to you before about the virtual meetings and clients, but has COVID had any other impact on your business? And have you had to adjust your services?
Yeah, so look, COVID did have a big impact, and it continues to have a big impact on companies that we work with and also ourselves. I think what we had to do, particularly in the early stages last year, was we had to be agile. We had to adapt to the situation. We also had to be patient with our clients because some of them were trying to deal with their own business issues and weren't maybe ready to do some of the things, working with consultants. So it was about being patient, it's about being agile, and then it's about being supportive on helping companies through the recovery journey. And what we're seeing now is a really big pickup in activity because maybe a bit of a backlog where things were on hold for some period of last year. People are now working with us a lot more actively thereafter.
Okay. So how does the business handle different laws and regulations in different countries?
Sure. So we work across multiple countries in the Middle East. So while we're based in Dubai, we're regularly working in different markets around the region. One of the key things that we have to continually look at on behalf for our clients is things like the tax laws, things like foreign investment laws, and particularly in my world where I'm helping basically one company buy another company or helping shareholders that own a business sell a business. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what are the foreign ownership laws in a particular country? So can I buy 100% of a business in Saudi Arabia or in UAE? And having some knowledge of that is important. And then also bringing in the right advice. So if you don't know, coming back to my opening comment, if you don't have the answer yourself, at least knowing where to go to get the answer and having a network of people that can support you to get that answer becomes really important.
Mm-hmm. This is another question from Yazira in year 12. Do you think that accounting services and firms are at risk with the rapid developments of technology?
It's a great question. Look, technology is all around us, and PwC as a global consulting firm has also recognized the importance of this. So we have very significant upskilling programs that we have for our existing staff to make sure that their digital acumen and their digital awareness is very strong. So that investment starts from when you join us as a graduate all the way up to the most senior levels at a partner level. So there is a lot of investment, a lot of training to make sure that not only are we're not at risk, but we're actually relevant and can actually offer digital services to our clients. Because the same way that the world is moving, our clients also need support around this matter. So it's not just about us being able to do our job in a technology advanced way, but it's also us being able to sell such services, consulting services to companies.
And so before you spoke about how a lot of the problems that you came across you could just ask questions about. But in general, do you think most of your current knowledge is related to schooling or just work experience?
Look, I think schooling gives you a great base. There's just absolutely no doubt about that. In terms of, both at school and at university, a lot of the content that you gather, you do apply in the early stages of your career. I think what you do find that on-the-job learning really then eventually takes over. So it is definitely relevant for the early parts of your career. But then as you get more ingrained into a certain company, ways of working, and you continually need to adapt. And I think that's one of the things, right? Learning is a lifelong journey. It doesn't stop at school or university, and it doesn't stop in your first few years. And one of the things that I always tell people that work with me is that as long as you're having fun with what you do and you're learning every day, you should stay in that job. If you don't have those two things working for you, then you're in the wrong place. Because if you stop learning, you're not developing yourself. So I think it is definitely relevant. Some of the things, like I say, will change over time. Your on-the-job will become more important, but it's a lifelong journey.
So obviously there are the things you learn at work and the things you learn at school and university and how it changes over time. But the things that you don't learn at work, what were they? Like the main skills that you gained from university alone?
Yeah, look, I think the skills you gain from university alone, I think you do gain from work, but I think some of the group work that you do at university, where you come together as a team, and you are maybe getting into deep technical expertise, and you're researching a particular area, and you go very deep into a subject. I think, in the nature of work that we do, it's very dynamic at times, and sometimes you don't have time to go very deeply into a particular technical area. Whereas, when you're at university, you're undertaking a whole project about a particular subject area. You have the time, and you're able to work together as a team. I think sometimes in the workplace, like I say, you don't always get the luxury of time to be able to deliver something. So, you need to move quicker.
Okay, so what are the skills you look for when you hire young staff?
So I think in terms of skills, I think passion and interest and intent is to me number one, right? I think you've got to be interested in what you're about to get into. So that's the starting point for me. But I think other things that I look at important are ownership and accountability. Do you take a lot of pride in what you do? And then I think having a great CV in terms of educational background, extracurricular activities, and so that you're well-rounded, but also having ideally some experience through an internship, maybe working over the summer at a particular firm. I think just because that's a great learning experience. I had the benefit of doing that myself as well. I did an internship in Hong Kong for 2 months, and I loved it. And it actually taught me what I didn't want to do as well. So I think those things are benefits that you gain from some experience through internships. But this is what I look for. But passion is number one.
Okay. You said that learning the things that you didn't want to learn at that time. Do you have any regrets at all in your career path?
No, I don't. I don't have regrets, but I think what is important is you, at certain point, take some risk and some chances. So, I've been at PwC now for 19 years. When I first joined the firm, it was always my ambition to become a partner. But I started with PwC in New Zealand. I left New Zealand after 4 years, and because I wanted to explore a different market, different region, and I came to the Middle East, and I haven't looked back since. But for me, after leaving after 4 years, that was an uncertain period in my career. I wasn't sure where I was going to go. And it ended up just happening that I came to PwC in the Middle East, and like I say, I've been very fortunate since then. So I don't have regrets, but I think what I would say, it is important at a certain point to take some risk take some chances, particularly when you're early in your career, and you can afford to take those chances.
Yeah, okay. And what is your distinct leadership impact?
Great. So I think look, my leadership style is about empowerment. So I've been very fortunate in the past to have some great bosses that I've worked with. And what I've seen, what they've afforded me is the space to be able to do my own thing and to really create my own niche, to create my own space, and to allow me to grow as an individual. That leadership style is what I like to impart with people that work with me. Is I want to give them the opportunity, the same opportunity that I've had, to be able to, for them to create their own path from a career perspective. So I would say that is what I think sums up my leadership style, is to make sure that people have got their own opportunity to really grow and develop and create their own careers and their own journey.
So your leadership style, would you give a lot of that credit to your bosses, or is that something that you kind of had within you?
Look, I think it's a mix of both, I would say. You know, you tend to follow, or you tend to learn from people that, you know, are successful and have treated you well. So I think that element is there. Something I've always believed in is to, as a leader, to always, you know, lead from the front, but also only ask of people what you would do yourself as leader. So I always try and sort of walk the talk, if you like. And so that's probably my own style that I would maybe add the element of what I've learned from others that I've worked with.
Okay. And for the final question, how do companies like PwC help students prepare for the world of work?
So I think in the early years when you first join a big firm like a PwC, we have very structured programs, particularly over the first 3 years when you join us, where you get a lot of training. So, you know, an element of working at a big firm is on the job through the project work or the work that you do, and then also formal training, and that becomes really important in your first few years. So we have formal training, we have support systems whereby we have staff that are asked to support individuals when they join in, whether what we call a coaching system, and having a coach and someone that you can also go and speak to about your career journey, your development needs, where you're going in your career is really important part of that support, because you know, you maybe you know, early part of your career you need some of that guidance sometimes. It's not just about doing a job, but you need guidance outside of just your day-to-day job. So we believe in training, we believe in coaching. The other big benefit, I would say, is the network that you create. And one of the things that I love seeing is that, you know, each one of us will have our own friends network through school, through university. What working in a big firm gives you is a network of friends that you can carry with you for life. And you know, I've made some great friends. Some of my best friends are people that I've met in my first few years, because we're all in it together, right? You're all new in the system. You're all exploring something for the first time. And some of those friendships gained in those first few years are, like I say, some of my best friends today. So I think, you know, that's some of the things that I would, you know, a big firm can offer. It's the training, it's the development, it's the coaching, it's network and friendships, and opportunities. So, you know, the fact that I left New Zealand, stayed at the same firm, but came here, it's an opportunity to effectively, you know, try something completely different, but stay with the same organization. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming today. I'm sure a lot of our business students will be watching this, and hopefully the comments you made would have given them advice for future careers choices. Thank you. Thank you.